Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar, What's New with Nixle in Intro to EngageBridge. My name is Megan Carter and I'll be your moderator for today's session. We're going to give everyone a few more minutes to get connected and then we'll get started. As a reminder, today's webinar is scheduled for around 45 to 60 minutes. The presentation portion will be around 45 minutes, followed by a Q&A session at the end. I'll be back in a few more minutes so we can begin as scheduled. All right, everyone, let's get started. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Megan Carter. On behalf of Everbridge, I'm excited to present this webinar, What's New with Nixle, an Introduction to EngageBridge. In this webinar, our presenter will give a brief overview of the Nixle solution, share some of Nixle's unique features, highlight specific Nixle in action examples and case studies, and finally introduce what's new in the Nixle release with an introduction to EngageBridge and a demo. After the presentation, we'll have about a 15-minute Q&A session with our speaker. As a reminder, you can submit your questions at any time during the webinar. You can send your questions by typing in the open text field in the questions panel and sending your questions to all panelists. If time runs out before your question is asked, we'll try to follow up with you after the webinar. Links to the recording of the webinar and slides from today's presentation will be available within a few days of today's session, and they'll be sent out to you as soon as possible. If you don't already, please feel free to follow us on Twitter @Everbridge and @Nixle. Now I'd like to introduce you to our speaker. Scott Benoit is currently Everbridge's Senior Director of Product Management and a certified Scrum product owner. Primary responsibilities at Everbridge include acting as the product owner for the Nixle and Everbridge community engagement product lines. We're excited to have Scott with us today. And now I'd like to turn it over to Scott. Scott, you may begin.
Great, thank you, Megan. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. And Megan, when you send it over, just please confirm that you can see my screen.
Sure. Yep, all set.
Okay, great, thank you. So thanks everyone for attending. I believe there is a good mix of customers here who are currently using the Nixle product, either a Connect version of the product, Engage, or 360. And there's also a number of you who are kind of looking at Nixle for the first time. So I did want to start with an overview of the service, how it relates to the Everbridge notification product as well. And then, as Megan mentioned, I'd love to give you a brief live demo of the mobile publishing app that will be going out tonight. So, just to start at a very high level, Nixle was acquired by Everbridge in late 2014, and it made a lot of sense. Everbridge sends a lot of notifications from the county and state level to groups of contacts, and a lot of those are opt-ins. Nixle thrives at a smaller level, so the municipal level, where PIOs, emergency managers, want to interact and engage with their public. So they want the ability to send lesser priority messages, so things such as traffic delays, or maybe a water main break that's disrupting a neighborhood. So things that aren't necessarily emergency or high priority messages, that those agencies, they still want to be able to get those to their residents. So Nixle is used on a much more frequent basis. But the beauty is, as those municipal agencies are interacting with the public, more and more residents begin opting in. So what we really see is what we kind of call a community engagement value cycle, and the idea is pretty simple. So the more you publish to your residents, the more residents you get, right? Because what happens is you are putting content out there, you are publishing to the Nixle network, you're very likely going to be sharing it to your Facebook and Twitter feeds. All of those messages will be shared even further, right? So as you're reaching those groups of users, wherever they are, Facebook, Twitter, Nixle, those users will share it even further, right? And all of that will basically point back to the Nixle system. So, imagine sharing a link on Facebook. Well, that link is to a Nixle web page, and residents will click through, they'll land on Nixle, and then they'll sign up for your alerts, right? So as you publish to the Nixle network, your message gets spread out via the social networks. Residents find their way back to the Nixle page, and they wind up signing up. So this is something we see every day, right? So you can imagine every time you publish a message, this wheel spins. People are coming back, they're signing up to your notifications to receive them directly from Nixle. And just to give you an idea, and this will relate to the next section when we show you our Optin Base, but the idea is pretty simple. We have a great footprint across the country. So we have over 9,000 agencies, so what just layered in here are the Nixle agencies. So we're just over, I believe, 8,000 agencies across the US, so very, very large footprint of agencies using Nixle and Everbridge, right? So it's a combined network effect, and I'll get into what that means right now. So obviously, if you're talking about building an opt-in base, one of the key, most essential pieces is making it extremely easy for residents to sign up. And we've kind of solved that in a few ways. The first of which is by via SMS. The second of which is over a web portal, so very similar to any sort of web sign-up process that you're probably familiar with. Anytime you sign up to Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is, you enter your name, password, right? But what we see a lot of is the SMS opt-in, because it's so simple. And the idea is residents can simply text their zip code to 888-777. So what does that look like? So 888-777 is the Nixle dedicated shortcode. It really just acts as a phone number. It's a 6-digit phone number. Now, if residents send their zip code to 888-777, they're signing up for all of the agencies in their neighborhood, in their zip code. So from a resident's perspective, very, very simple concept, right? You just send your zip code to 888-777, and then once you do that, you're actually not just receiving messages from one agency. You are going to be receiving messages from all of the agencies that service that zip code. So I live in LA County, and I can tell you just by signing up to 91016, just by sending that into 888-777, I am signed up for 4 or 5 agencies right? And which is great. So the county level agencies, if there's a, obviously county level notification, and last month there were wildfires burning just a few miles from my house. I was getting great information from the LAPD fire department, from the local fire department who was also assisting with that. So just a lot of great information coming from multiple agencies. And again, from a resident's perspective, dead simple to sign up, right? Just texting that zip code to 888-777. Now, from an agency's perspective, I think it's as equally powerful of a concept. So you can imagine, let's say that 91016, let's say 1,000 users have opted in. They have sent that zip code to 888-777, right? So they've opted into this zip codes. And we call this concept the Nixle Wire, right? The concept is you join basically a zip code, right? And the Nixle Wire is that feed of all of the public safety information that's going into that zip code, right? So you can imagine all 4 of these agencies share this 1,000 users. They all have access to this 1,000 users. So this is really powerful if you consider, imagine a 5th or a 6th agency comes on board with Nixle. They will immediately have access to that 1,000 users, right? You're never starting at 0. And it's also, it's really exciting actually to see new Nixle customers come on board and find out that they have hundreds, thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of residents who already opted in, just waiting to receive your messages, right? So I would encourage you to reach out to a Nixle representative after the demo and just find out how many users you have in your zip code. You might be very surprised. So that's the concept of the Nixle Wire and what we call the network effect. Just the idea that you are sharing these users. But another way to get people to opt in is very similar to the zip code. It's actually identical from an interaction standpoint, right? A resident texts something to 888-777. But we call these event groups. And the idea is, if your agency has something going on in town, let's say you have a Labor Day weekend parade coming up, and you want people to opt into a specific group. So maybe there's going to be traffic detours, parking restrictions. Maybe there's, if there's a change in venue at the last minute that you want people to be aware of, whatever it is, you would create a group. So very simple, but you would assign a mobile keyword to that group, right? So in this case, let's say you have a jazz festival coming up. You create a mobile keyword, jazz festival. And now if residents text jazz festival to 888-777, they have signed up to that specific group. Now again, this is very similar to the zip code SMS interaction, but they are signing up to a specific group in this case, so your specific group, not to an entire zip code of notifications, just to one group. So again, same SMS interaction, very, very simple for opt-ins, but just slightly different outcomes for the end user, right? Just signing up for one group versus signing up to an entire zip code worth of notifications. And just to give you some examples, so maybe you have a local transportation system that you want people to stay in contact with. Maybe there's construction going on. Maybe there's some, whatever it is. Maybe there's some local gathering for Fleet Week in San Francisco. Maybe there's the DC Jazz Festival. Maybe Police Week is something that is big in your community. Maybe there's a local fair coming up. The idea is you set up that keyword, you set up that group, and then you market that keyword to your residents. Hey, text CA Fair 16 to 888-777. And I will say, when it comes to marketing these keywords, we do have a lot of best practices and materials that will help you get the word out. So we've seen a lot of great successful campaigns from Nixle customers. Just how do you get that word out? How do you get people to opt in? So we always love working with our customers to figure out how that's going to work in your community, since obviously communities are different. the level of social media outreach that one agency employs versus another, sometimes very different. So definitely like to work with our customers to figure out what will work best for you. So just very quickly, let's talk about some notification examples. So what kind of messages are being sent from the Nixle system? So now you'll notice here that this message has a alert indicator. So Nixle essentially has 3 message priorities that they really break down to high, medium, and low. We call them alert, advisory, and community. So in this case, this was an alert for a missing child. And I'm sure everyone's aware that Amber Alerts have a very stringent set of characteristics needed to meet that Amber Alert criteria. So in a lot of cases, messages that fall short of that Amber Alert, which are distributed automatically from the Amber Alert IPOS agency or system, they will go out via IPOS. Sometimes Nixle agencies will also send them if it's impacting their area. But a lot of times messages fall short of that criteria, and so agencies use Nixle to send out these messages. And we've actually had a lot of fantastic use cases here. Residents would receive messages for a missing child. They'll receive it on their phone. They'll look at the message on their phone and realize they just saw that child. Maybe the child was lost. We see a lot of cases of missing elderly residents with Alzheimer's, for example, being found because somebody receives a text message, immediately realizes that they just saw that resident. They're able to contact local law enforcement and bring that person home safe. So a lot of great use cases here. This one is for a gas leak that was impacting a specific neighborhood. So this agency sent the message. They included exactly where the alert was occurring, and they let a very specific portion of the community know what was going on. So you'll see here, this is an advisory. So this is kind of that medium priority message. In this case, it was due to a power outage at a intersection. So just kind of, again, it doesn't quite qualify as a high priority message, but it's still something that obviously will impact residents, right? So we want to make sure that they get that message via SMS. And then, if you have let's say a neighborhood meeting coming up that you want residents to be aware of. Again, great use of the Nixle system. So in this case, this is the community message type. So this is, again, great use of the system. And just really quickly to talk about a case study. This happened, I guess, almost a year ago now. But the Pope visited the Philadelphia area. Obviously, the city was expecting a lot of people to flood into the city over the weekend. That he was in attendance, so they were expecting about 1.5 million attendees. You can imagine there was a lot of logistical coordination between law enforcement, first aid, dispatchers, etc. So it was a very coordinated effort within the city, and they approached Everbridge and Nixle, and they wanted a solution to communicate with visitors just for this event, right? So what they did was we came up with a plan, and again, this kind of speaks to our best practices. But if you have an event coming up, obviously before the event, you want to make sure you get ahead of it as far as possible. You get some marketing in place. And again, this is where we can help you. During the event, as it's unfolding, as it's happening, obviously important to send relevant messaging. And of course, situations are always changing. It could be weather, as I mentioned, parking, whatever it is, sending messaging during the event. And then after the event, we actually have best practices here as well that I'll share with you in a minute. But so we worked with the city. We came up with the keyword papal visit. Right, so just by sending papal visit to 888-777, residents were able to opt in to this very specific group that the city of Philadelphia had set up. Right, so after they came up with the keyword, now the heat is on to get that keyword out to their residents to make sure that they actually opt in. right? So the city of Philadelphia did a great job. They had print literature that they distributed at their local monuments for walking maps. So they added a call to action there, right? Text papal visit to 888-777. Obviously, they put out press releases. Local media picked up the story, so that call to action was appearing on local TV, newspapers, blogs. The city was sending that call to action across their Twitter streams, posting it to their Facebook walls. Text papal visit to 888-777. So they did a great job getting the word out. And what that really led to was a very sharp spike in signups in a very, very short amount of time. And obviously a great result. So an interesting comparison here is in the 7 years leading up to the event, the city had about 15,000 Twitter followers, 3,000 Facebook likes. In the 7 days leading up to the event, they were able to get 11,500 opt-ins. So it really just, I think speaks to the ease of opt-in. Residents are obviously very familiar with interacting with their text messaging apps. So it's very easy. And looking at this, had maybe the city started marketing the event a week or 2 weeks prior, they could have even had even better results. But still, they're very pleased with the outcome here. And going back to the plan, if you have that event coming up, getting out in front of it as soon as possible will really help this this graph go up even higher for your agency. During the event, obviously a lot of messaging going on, so you name it. So there was Jumbotron set up, there were first aid tents scattered around the city, so the Joint Information Center was sending out a lot of great messages. And then after the event, so let's say you have a big group of users that opt into a specific group, such as Papal Visit. After the event is over, now what? How do you get those residents to opt into your everyday notifications? Not your event-specific notifications. So the city actually sent a text message to all of the users in that group and asked them to respond with their zip code. So once a resident does this, now they kind of transfer over into that Nixle Wire group of users, right, who are now going to receive everyday communications from all of the relevant agencies in their community. So it's a great way to kind of transition users into a broader set, into getting a broader set of information. So that's really kind of the overview, and really excited to introduce Nixle Engage Bridge. So for the Nixle users who have been on the Nixle platform for a while, you probably know this has been a long time coming, so we're excited to finally release this to our customers. So the idea here is it's really simple. This app is going to make it very easy for you to communicate with your users from the field. So this is it will allow you to message your public groups as well as your private groups, right? So again, it will be available for Engage customers, 360 customers, and for SMB customers. So SMB is small, medium business. So we do have a business-specific package within the Nixle product that we offer to our business customers. So Engage Bridge will be offered to these three user groups. So what I'd like to do is actually launch the demo. So if you can see my screen here, this is the actual app. So this is functioning in our testing environment. So after logging in, you will be greeted with this screen. It will show your agency name. It will give you two messaging options as default. And you'll notice along here, very, very streamlined navigation. So you can send messages to your public groups, to your private groups, and you can adjust a few settings. So very, very simple, streamlined navigation. Now from here, I'm going to touch on Quick Message first. So if I click into Quick Message, you'll notice that it will show exactly what the message is doing and who it is targeting. So we took a look at Nixle statistics, and a vast majority of Nixle messages that go out are advisories, that medium priority message type. Messages are almost always going to the Nixle Wire. Again, that's your main group of community opt-ins. And agencies like to send messages via SMS only, right? But the interesting thing is, if you send this message via SMS, in most cases, it will include a link to a web page, right? So you can send this, and if there are enough available characters in your text message, we'll also include a link to a web page. So the idea here is make it very, very simple for you to very quickly target the Nixle Wire via advisory and just send that message out. So that's the quick message. And again, it's based on data that we have showing what the most common permutation of message components is. So, so that is the quick message. I'm actually going to cancel out and we can go into advanced message. So if you want to generate an email, if you want to send a voice notification for our 360 customers, if you want to target Facebook and Twitter all with the same notification, this is where you would do that directly from the quick message, the advanced message page. So you'll notice at the top we have the message type. So again, this is the high, medium, low, alert, advisory, community. We default to advisory, right, the medium priority, but users can select alert, right? And you'll notice that if you select alert, SMS and email become required. So we do ask our users who are sending these high priority alerts to enter a very specific set of information, right? We want to make sure that if you're pressing that red, the red button, the big red button, the high priority message, we want to make sure that the message that reaches your residents has a full set of information that really describes what kind of emergency is happening. So actually, I'll walk through this very quickly. So I've selected alert. Now, if I select next, you'll notice I am asked to provide the CAP category. So Nixle is CAP compliant, CAP, Common Alerting Protocol. Is a structure set up by the federal government to more or less standardize emergency messaging. So it does have a common set of characteristics, one of them being the category. So security, safety, meteorological, for example. So let's say this is safety related, and I click next. So how is this impacting public safety? So we ask you to clarify even further. So let's say this is a missing child. I click next. Now 3 sets of data that support the event type. So if it's a missing child, we will default the severity, urgency, and certainty, right? Extreme, immediate, and observed. Now, if you were to click into these, you can obviously change it, but we recommend going with the defaults here, right? So you can, again, so just to jump back one screen, so missing child, I click next. We default this information, and you can click next again. And this is where you would enter your CAP instructions. So upon receiving this message, what should your residents do, right? So we ask that you provide some sort of instructions for your user. So this is the CAP information. So actually, I'm going to back out. And what I'd like to do is actually stick with the advisory type. I'm going to actually enter all of these notification types. Now, a few things just happened. Actually, let me unselect these and show you that if I select Facebook, email and web becomes required because the Facebook message relies on the information entered in the web and email fields within the app. Now, similar to Twitter, Twitter is basically a duplicate of your SMS field. Now, I can also add voice. So I can click next. I can select test message, or excuse me, just enter my SMS message. Now, as I press next, I go to the email screen. I can you'll notice we carry the SMS message through. We duplicate it as the email headline. I can also enter body text here. I can actually enter a incident zone, an incident location. And since this is on my my test account, it's not pinpointing my exact location. But if you were to use this feature, the incident location, it will actually center itself on your agency's address, right? So it knows where your agency is located. It will center on the address. And let's say I'm in, let me find a area here. So let's say I'm in Lompoc, and let's say there's a traffic incident happening at this intersection. I could select this, right? And you'll notice the location icon is now active. It's red. Now, when I send this message, it will have a map that residents can see. They'll be able to see exactly where this incident is occurring. I can also click and add an image if I'd like. So say test, test. Now this is where I would be able to record a voice message, and again, this is for 360 customers. 360 customers do have access to sending voice messages, so I can select stop, click next. Now when it comes to targeting, I have a few options. I can send to public groups, or I can send to a geographic filter, right? So let's say I want to send to my Nixle Wire group, and I created a webinar group. Maybe I want to send to these two groups, or maybe I want to send to a point in radius. So this actually picked up my agency jurisdiction. So I have a very specific area that I can publish my messages to. So I can drop a point, and I can actually make this point smaller. So if I just want to notify residents in that radius, I could, right? So from here, let me just jump back. If I click preview, just very simply, I see a preview of the message I'm about to send. So you can give it a once over. Message type shows who I'm targeting. It shows what message I'm sending. It indicates that I've selected an incident address. I can play back my voice message. It'll show the messages that are going to Facebook and Twitter, and I can send it from here. Right now, to get back, you do need to, what we say, left out. So you need to just press the back button, essentially. But again, very, very cool targeting features. Also, if you wanted to target by a city or town name or zip code, so I can just simply enter a zip code here and add that. And now I'll be able to send to that zip code. Now I'm actually going to go all the way back and just show the private messaging function. So again, looking along the bottom navigation, you'll notice I can send a private message. So if you have groups set up to communicate internally within the Nixle system, you can also very easily communicate with those groups. So you'll notice there are no Facebook and Twitter options. We don't want your private messages going out to your social networks. So if I want to send an email message to the operations group, I can do it very, very simply. So again, from the field, you'll have the ability to communicate with those public and private groups of contacts. And then I think lastly, let's see if I have it here. I would encourage you, there's a lot of features and functionality included also, and this is for the the attendees here who are kind of researching Nixle for the first time. But I would really encourage you to reach out to a representative, get a demo of the Nixle system, take a look at how we kind of handle our publishing interface. This mobile publishing app is really based on the interface that we have on the web. So this is the new message page that we have on the web. Same concept. I select my priority, I enter my information, And the idea here on the web, very similar to the app, we keep this very streamlined, right? So you can get through this flow very easily. We know time is of the essence in the event of an emergency. As you start clicking on things, so if I select alert, you'll notice I have to enter my CAP information. You'll notice I have voice dialing, iPause options. So really, really powerful system. And then, Nixle tipping, right? So just a lot of features that I think require, a little more of a deep dive that, a Nixle rep would be happy to walk you through. So Megan, I think with that, I'd love to maybe turn it back to you and then answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Scott, so much. At this point, we're going to move on to our question and answer portion. We have a few questions that were submitted prior to the webinar, but we'll also take questions from the audience. As a reminder, you may submit your questions by typing a question into the open text field in the questions panel and submit it to all panelists. And we will answer as many questions as time allows. I will start. I'll start with looking at, let's see, one second. I'll start with a question that's kind of more marketing focused, so I can actually take this one, Scott. The question is, does Nixle offer any materials to help increase opt-ins? And the answer to that question is absolutely yes. Our Nixle homepage, www.nixle.com, is actually a resident information page with opt-in information as well. So agencies can actually share the page with residents and family and friends, etc. And also the resource section in the customer portal has a bunch of resources to help you increase your opt-ins as well. So I would suggest you guys check those two places out. And then next question is for you, Scott. When will the Engage Bridge Android version be available?
Good question. So, as I mentioned, the iOS app is coming out tonight, and it actually will go to Apple tonight for review. Apple typically takes a few days to review the app, so it will likely hit the App Store end of week. But the Android version will be coming in our next release, which is scheduled for October 19th. So for any Android users, it is following the iOS release by just a few months.
Okay, great. Next question, does Nixle connect to iPause?
It does, yeah. I actually just kind of rushed through that in the interface, but Nixle, and this is offered to 360 and Engage customers, but Nixle does integrate with iPause for both EAS and WIA, WIA being the wireless emergency alerts. So those are the two most used channels, I think, for iPause. Now, if your agency has a requirement for all of the iPause channels, I would encourage you to look into the Everbridge notification system. Everbridge offers 5 iPause supported channels. Nixle offers, as I mentioned, EAS and WIA. So the process there is, if you're interested in iPause, you work with FEMA to become iPause certified. You would then look for a vendor to actually, after you receive your certification and credentials from FEMA, you would then be able to input those into the Nixle system, connect your system to iPause, and then leverage the iPause network for your notifications.
Okay, great, thank you. Next question, one of our attendees just wants clarification that Nixle Connect is not included for the app. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the app will be available to Nixle 360 and Engage customers, as well as SMB customers if there are any in attendance.
Great. Okay, next question. What package do I need to purchase to get anonymous tipping?
So again, that would be Engage or 360. Um, and it's actually a very um, in-depth product. So if you are interested in tipping, I would encourage you to set up just a tipping specific demo just to see everything that's offered with that package. So your residents can submit anonymous tips over SMS. Your agency will have a web form where residents can submit their tips. And then within your Nixle application, you'll be able to manage those tips. So obviously you'll be able to see inbound tips. You'll be able to assign those to other members of your department or agency. You can actually open a two-way conversation with the tipster where you can ask questions of them and then they can reply, and that entire interaction is handled anonymously. But yes, short answer, it's offered to our Engage and 360 customers.
Okay. Okay, here is a question from a customer who's had a Nixle account since 2012. They're in the phase of expanding the Everbridge subscription, and they've had residents opting in the last couple weeks. Their question is, has their old Nixle account, which they can sign into on Nixle.com, has that merged with the Everbridge account where they can send Nixle messages in the Everbridge dashboard?
Yes, that's exactly right. So if you were a Nixle customer who has upgraded to Everbridge, but you still want to message those Nixle contacts, you do have a few options. You can continue logging into your Nixle agency, or you can send that message directly from Everbridge. So you can actually, on the Everbridge notification form, you would be able to basically target all of your Nixle subscribers and send directly from Everbridge. So as you upgrade, so if you're a Nixle customer thinking of moving up to the Everbridge platform, you can still maintain that connection to your Nixle residents and message them directly from Everbridge Suite.
All right, and kind of as a follow-up to that, if they have the ability to send messages through Everbridge and iPods, is it overkill to also use Nixle at the same time?
I don't think so. We tend to say there is no magic bullet. There's a lot of channels to reach your residents, but in the event of a severe emergency, it's okay to over message them. And I actually draw on an example that as I mentioned, I went through a few weeks ago. There was a wildfire maybe less than a mile from my house, and I received a few messages in rapid successions from multiple agencies, and I was very appreciative. So I think in that case, it is entirely okay to make sure that your residents are getting messages. So it is not overkill. I think it's entirely acceptable. Especially when there's a severe risk of bodily or property injury. I think it's entirely okay.
Okay, our next question is, can you send messages to multiple groups simultaneously, both groups and geographically? I think they're asking if you send one message to multiple groups in different areas.
I see. So I think this might be related to the app, because in the app we ask you to target either a group or a specific geography. So in the app, we do keep those targeting concepts separate. And that's primarily because the geo-filtering that agencies use applies to their Nixle Wire, right? You want to geo-filter just that group of users. So maybe you want to send to just one zip code as opposed to 3 zip codes. So in the app, if you target a specific zip code, by default you're targeting your Nixle Wire group. So and then in terms of groups, so let's say you've set up, you have, let's say, 3 festivals coming up. You can target multiple groups. So you can target all 3 festivals, just 2 of them, obviously just 1. So you can target multiple groups within the app as well.
Okay, and actually kind of going along the same lines, does the geo-targeting only mean that the targeted location will be included in the message, or will it target residents who have opted in who live in that location?
The latter. So it will target residents who have opted in to that location.
Great. All right. Another question: Is it possible to send private and public messages from the app at the same time?
It is not. It is not. We wanted to keep those separate. And again, this is after working with a few beta agencies early on in our development process. But we didn't want users to get far along in the message sending process and accidentally publish a message to the public that was meant to be. So we thought it was important to keep those 2 tabs separate. So for the app right now, those concepts are separate. The concept of public versus private messaging.
Okay, and we have a question about private groups. We have a private group. Can we use the zip code filter?
Yes, you should be able to. Let's see. Sorry, right now, private group is limited to group contacts, so there is no geographic filtering for private groups currently.
Okay. Let's see. Does Nixle, it looks like it's a general Nixle question. Does Nixle offer weather alerts?
We do. We offer NWS rebroadcasts. So again, it's another feature I'd encourage you to have demoed for you in more depth. But we integrate with the NWS. We send messages on your agency's behalf to your residents. So we give you multiple options of what kind of messages you want to send to your residents. We let you choose how those messages reach your residents. We allow you to choose which groups those messages reach. So yes, short answer, yes, we integrate with NWS.
Excellent. How and when will the app be available?
So the app will be available, again, we will be releasing our code tonight. We will be submitting our app for review tonight to the App Store. Apple typically takes 2 business days to review, and it should be in the App Store by Friday evening, possibly early next week. Now again, this will be iOS only for our first release. Our next release, scheduled for October 19th, will be when the Android version is available in the Android store.
Okay, and we have been getting a lot of questions about regarding Connect. Connect, just to reiterate, Connect is not available for the app.
That's correct. It is available for Engage and 360 customers.
And I think that is it. I think that's all the questions that we have. So I'd like to thank you, Scott, so much for a great session, and also like to thank all of our attendees who were able to join us today. If you missed any part of the webinar, please look for an email with a link to the recording in the next coming days. And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to your account managers for other details or request a demo. And thank you all for your participation in today's webinar, and we hope to see you online again. Have a great day.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Take care.